Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Paranormal Karen. It is just me today, which is, I hope that's good. Sometimes it's good. You're going to hear me rustling papers now. And you may, I tore a paper. You may hear the wind in Los Angeles right now. We're still in February. It's February 20th. The wind is insane. So if you hear some banging or something, it is not an EVP. It is my rickety apartment. So welcome to the show. I have so much to tell you, and this is going to be a little potpourri of a show, but I'm looking at my list. So right now you guys are hearing this. It is probably March 15th, 19th, something like that. So I'm sure I will have put an ad on earlier, but Thomas Durant, you hear me talk about him constantly on this podcast and constantly, whenever, he is going to be doing a Facebook Live with me March 25th at 7 p.m. And what you want to do for that is I did a couple of these. I originally did it to help get my class out there, my tarot class, so that people would see and get a preview of it. And I'm going to do that again, but it went so well and people liked it so much. We just did one on numerology that really was so fun, and numerology goes right along with tarot. So I brought it in. So at first I thought, well, some of these will be to promote tarot and learn tarot, but they are so good and fun. And Laura Hayden is my hostess, that I said, I'm going to do one with Tommy. So, Tommy, we call him a paranormal consultant. Sometimes you hear me refer to him as a demonologist, which he's not. Tommy is so modest, and but he helps me with all the dark problems, which I'm going to get talking to you about today because a lot has been going on. So Tommy will be there. That is Pacific Standard Time, March 25th, Facebook Live. All you got to do is go to my Facebook page, Karen Rontowski, and you can follow me, but I think it's public, so you can watch along. So Tommy and I will be talking about a bunch of topics, and then you can give him questions. So we're going to be taking questions. And we'll probably have some sort of a contest where, like, if you tag a friend or bring a friend in to watch, you'll be in a drawing to win a free, my tarot class for free. So that is March 25th. And I'm probably going to do a series of these. I'm not 100% positive, but Laura Hayden is a fantastic host. You guys come and play along. And, I just think it's a great way to do this. Too hot, heat down. Okay, hot flash, heat off. All right, so today I want to start by covering what happened since the podcast, the end of January, where Diet channeled a demon. So first of all, I think, especially from the feedback, that you all felt the same way I did, which was that whole podcast kind of blew my mind. There's so many pieces to this that I have to tell you. I felt like that podcast had Easter eggs in it, where the next couple of days I'd be thinking about it and I go, oh, that's what that meant. Or, I see what's going on there. And even though some of the stuff was so simple, or what he was saying or what he was channeling through Diet, I felt like I just kept learning from it. So that's the positive part. And I'm going to say this. I believe it's in the Bible, or maybe it's in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I don't know. I couldn't even think of a book. That's how much I read. I believe it's something like the devil will tell you 9 truths, so he can tell you one lie. And I still believe that, because here's what happened. I believe everything that was in that podcast was absolutely true. I believe we got good information. I believe he channeled. I also believe it was Azizel. I talked to Tommy after and did a little research. This is not a being that likes humans. So it was a little odd to reach out and help. And I believe there was a carrot dangled in front of myself and Diet. And that carrot was, I'll come talk to you again. You heard that at the end. I hope you can't hear that car alarm going off there. As soon as you mention a demon's name, a car alarm goes off. That's how it is. That's how it is in Van Nuys. Well, actually, you can mention anyone's name and a car alarm will go off in Van Nuys. You can hear where he says he'll talk to us again. And I go, well, that's great. He can be on my podcast anytime. Right? Very excited. I believe that was the test. And it hit me about a week later that I was done, that I won't do that again. And then things started to get weird. Okay, so I'm going to pause until that. You won't even know what pause, but I got to pause until that car alarm goes off. Okay. All right, so that car alarm stopped. All right, so first of all, after it, so I think I told you all that. That was the carrot, and that was the point to say no. So after that, Diet and I kept kind of checking in with each other. You okay? Yeah, I'm okay. You're okay. Nothing weird. Not too bad. But then things did sort of change, okay? And this is why I say don't do this at home. And I'm going to speak for me, not Diet. I'm sure I'll have Diet on the show and she can tell me her part. She just talked a little bit about people getting strange around her. But everything got very, all of a sudden I had like 2 or 3 cases being sent to me that all were demonic. Some of them I stuck with and they turned out to be okay. But things started to get very, very dark and very strange, okay? Not like the time I had an attachment, not a mood, but it just seemed like all of a sudden demon was everywhere. A new podcast popped up. All these things and a lot of cases and a lot of curses and stuff like that. People talking to me about this stuff. And at one point I literally said out loud, okay, I'm done. Because I think that with doing that or being around that energy, I started to draw it to me. And I didn't want that. And it actually turned into an episode of something that happened that I'm going to get to in a second. But first I want to explain to you, I think I may have done this on a different podcast, so I apologize if I'm repeating. But I do remember one time when I was in a home that really had something that dark in it, that had the real deal. And I remember what I felt like. And I remember my partner was with me. And what happened was we were investigating and it was almost like this thing entered the room and it felt like nothing I had ever felt before. It felt like if I was standing in front of something that was putting so much radiation through me that I could feel every cell in my body. So that if you said, well, what about in your liver, cell 592? I'd be like, I know exactly where it is. It was this unbelievable awareness and aliveness and just being frightened because everything was at such high alert. And I remember many, many years earlier, my tarot teacher, when she never talked about this kind of stuff, but she said, they'll make you lose your mind. Don't be around it. They will make you lose your mind. So as I'm feeling this, I go into ultimate protection, which is your solar plexus, your yellow solar plexus chakra out covering you, completely covering you. And that's what I did. And I remember saying in my head, as I'm listening to what's going on in the room, saying, I'm Karen Rontowski. I know who I am. I'm Karen Rontowski. I know who I am. And that sort of grounded me and saved me. And I said it over and over. And I looked over at my partner and she got up and started meandering and spinning around, or there was something she was doing that I couldn't. I remember thinking, nope, stay. You take care of you. Okay. She was fine that night when I left, but many months later, she had called me and said, I wasn't okay after that. And I was going to check on her because there was a lot of things that happened and I had to call Tommy and Tommy had to help me after this whole episode. But I didn't want to call her in case nothing happened. I didn't want to call her and be like, hey, are you all right? Or is there a demon in your place if there wasn't? And I figured she would get in touch with me if she had trouble. But she didn't. But she apparently handled it and now everything's okay. But she was like, I really was not okay. So when in that interview with Divet, when he talked about the magician being able to hold the space or hold the energy, I believe that was exactly what he was talking about. And I was lucky enough in that space the first time to hold that energy and just repeat, I know who I am. I know, do protection. I know who I am. So while we were doing that interview with Diet, that same energy was here, but it didn't feel as, I felt almost, the other energy was imposing. But after I hung up with Diet, after we did that podcast, I was so like, it was this, I recognized it. I was like, it was the same. It was a different level of it. I don't think this, I don't think the demon we were talking to was at me like the other one, but I think it's that presence. And you heard us talk about in this podcast how I asked, can you get sick from this? And he said, yes. And I think it is, I'm just going to keep connecting it to radiation. It's like being radiated so powerfully. And at that point, like I said, cases started, popping up, and something happened in my home to someone that had a connection to something dark. And I will tell you what happened the night that person was here is my apartment is really strange. In fact, other psychics come over and are like, why do you live here? You got to get out of here. What's going on? And whatever it is, I have a contract or have had a contract with the things in here that I'm okay with them and they're okay with me. Okay. After that podcast everything was okay after the podcast. In fact, I was surprised at how well I slept, that this place wasn't activated. So someone came over that had trouble with, I'm going to call it a dark traveler. I don't even like the word anymore, demon. What was weird is while that person was here, it was like a mushroom trip in here. You know how sometimes you see things out of the corner of your eye move around, or this is something? No. In front of my face, things were moving. And I got very nervous. And after this person left, I slept like not well with the light on for days. And, it was like sometimes I can hear people walking around in the living room. Usually doesn't make me nervous, was making me very nervous. Something seemed to be hopping on the roof. I was looking up, what is that? What are regular noises when the roof expands, or when the wood gets hard or cold, or what is a regular house settling sound? I actually was reading about that for a day. I had to really cleanse, really do dragon's blood resin, but I had to make an effort like never before. And I asked, Sonia, the pet communicator, after this person had left and the place, like I said, was like alive, like my apartment was like alive. I said, what did Courage see? Because Courage wasn't afraid, which is good. If Courage is afraid, I'm terrified. And he said, it was like things were going through your closet. What's this? And they were whispering and they were looking at everything. And he said, the regular things that were in your place were like, what is this all about? Like the two didn't get along. That's all he can tell you is whatever her beings were and my beings were, they did not mix. And everything's cool with me and this person. So there's no worries about anything. And she's good. She's great. So I'm not even worried about that. But my place was reacting to something. And that was after that night, a couple of days I spent really cleansing. I had a long talk with Tommy. And it was at that point that I stepped forward and I said, nope, all done. Thank you very much. I don't want any more part of this. Now, since then, my house has been great. I talked to Tommy after because Tommy, like I said, Tommy does, helps me with all the stuff. He helps me with all the demonology stuff. And he said, I said, you might want to listen to the podcast. It's interesting. And he was like, you know what? I love your podcast, but I don't think I'm going to do it. I don't think I'm going to. And it was from him that I learned about how you close that door. You really have to close that door. I will tell you, curiosity, a second one with Diet, curiosity says yes. My constitution says no. Okay. My being says no. Whatever that was, it ignited everything. So that's why sometimes I think, I always come from a place of precaution. So to all of you, this is not really something to be fooled with. And I know that firsthand. Also, I was saying to Tom, I was like, did I make a mistake? And Tommy explained it wonderfully, which was, he said, he talked about how even the magicians that really worked with these demons, that how the demons would suddenly throw them off or throw them a curveball, or everything would work out great. And then all of a sudden they would be like, no. In fact, Tommy will probably tell this story. I'll ask him about it on the Facebook Live, about how they would help them. And then all of a sudden they'd be like, no, you guys got to sleep with each other's wives. And the magicians would be like, what? And no, that's what you got to do. And then chaos sets in. So, Tommy, of course, gave me what to do, how to cleanse. And then he said, well, you know what it is? He's like, there's this lake that you're curious about. And I think you went up and got a drink, and now you're done. You didn't go swimming. You didn't drown in it. But I think he was right. So that is sort of the follow-up to the Dia episode. I still believe everything about it, and I still stand by it. And I don't think any of you guys are in danger because you weren't actually there for the channeling. But I think I'm done. We'll talk about some of this stuff with Tommy, but also it was very interesting what popped up around that time. Like I said, several cases with demonic stuff, and also a couple of poltergeist cases, which a lot of times I think you all are having poltergeists instead of spirits. Because if you listen to this podcast, if you listen to Jess's podcast, and you're into all this stuff, I'm betting you're either very psychic or you're empath or something. It's usually there. Every once in a while I'll get a skeptic or somebody that's kind of, there's nothing. And they will eventually get bored with my podcast or what. They don't want to hear about fairies and stuff if they have nothing going on, or I should say nothing they're aware of. But if you are a little bit of any of that, you probably just got an upgrade. Okay. I feel like we all just got an upgrade, and I'll tell you about mine in the next segment. So one of the cases that came to me was about someone that things moving around the apartment, things breaking. And I consult with Tommy. I always consult with Tommy with a case. And as this person is telling me about what's going on, he alluded to listening to what's on TV or looking it up too much on the internet. One thing I liked about this person is he was I don't think he knew how to lie, and he would tell me. So, and one of the key things about knowing if something was demonic is a particular smell. It's the smell of sulfur. And he started telling me about a sulfur smell. And I kind of intuitively said, did you smell sulfur before or after you saw that on the internet? And he said, I don't know. So, and then he described some cases where it smelled, we figured out the sulfur was coming from the street or it was coming from outside. So we ruled that out. There were 2 or 3 things that he told me that we could rule it out, perhaps scratches or the way they scratched or the feeling or where he was. So we kind of narrowed this down. And in my, I think, second interview with this guy, he told me 2 things, and these are the keys, folks. He started to tell me about some of his psychic experiences throughout his life. Not only was he having psychic experiences, but he was also sent to a parapsychologist at one point by a psychologist because he was so in tune. So there's your first clue. Okay. The second clue was something about him recognizing that he wasn't living his life right. He said it. He said he wasn't living his life right. And he described to me an incident that happened that had to do with love that broke his heart and crushed him. And he realized he was not living his life right. Those 2 things put together led us down the path, and I say us because Tommy was overseeing with me, that he was a poltergeist, which we know now poltergeist is not a ghost from the outside that comes in. A poltergeist is usually coming off someone who is very, very psychic or has abilities that they don't know how they're using. You mix that with a little dark side of the soul, I'm not living my life right, and stuff starts moving around your apartment. And another thing you can match that with is a teenage girl. It's usually around a teenage girl. It doesn't have to be. But she will have hormonal, when hormone changes. I always say psychic, sexual, and creative energy are all the same thing. And she will sort of become of age, and she will it's like the energy is ricocheting off. It's coming off. Well, I didn't think I was going to have enough to fill 20 minutes, but I'm almost there. And so I'm going to leave that there. Hang on, folks. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody. You know I only bring you the best in readers and healers, and that's why I'm here to talk about Paul Jasek. Paul was the guy you all went nuts for on the New Year's prediction show, as you should. He was fantastic. He's one of my favorite people, and not only is he a reader, he's also an entertainer. So when you book with him, you know you're in for some fun as well. He's not only accurate, he's one of the most compassionate human beings I've ever met, which means he can tell you how it is without scarring you for life. We all know those readers that blurt stuff out or try to work out their own shadow side on us. That's not Paul. Paul is going to give you the information you need and have you walking away inspired. That's Paul Jasek. You can book with him at www.paul, Jasek, JACEK.com. Okay. So, we're going to talk about my upgrade, which I also believe sort of came from, you talk about every experience having a positive. It's funny. I was just listening to one of Jess's new podcasts on, her, is it OA? And it's interesting how much the bad experiences teach us. You know, we're going to have Tommy talk about that on the Facebook Live, but we talk about how demons used to be teachers and they're here to teach us. And boy, did I learn a lot, just from that experience. I don't know how much balance I need, but I did learn, so much, and I learned to draw a line there. So what happened after that was, all kinds of things got very murky, and I went to see my therapist. First of all, I have the greatest therapist in the world, and she literally muscle tests you to see if you have COVID. You can go in if you pass a muscle test, and she's that good. She does Chinese medicine. She does all these healing things, and when I went to see her, it came up that I was sick, but I didn't have COVID, and I actually wasn't physically ill. And I started to tell her the whole thing about all this demonic stuff and having to get my apartment back in order, and how it just was so unsettling. And she said, do you know about the 7-layer protection? That she explained to me, a yogi that she had read about, that with the 7 layers of protection of your aura, things like curses and stuff can't penetrate. If you have those 7 layers protected, it really bounces off. I'm sure there's some way it can penetrate, or you can make a mistake. It's not foolproof. But she said, why don't you start that? So I went on a quest and I started reading. And let me tell you, empaths, there was on my podcast for the new year where I said, you've been given armor. You could use it. You just have to use it. You just have to put it on. I think this is it, because everything in my house calmed down. I started sleeping better. And I'm going to explain a little bit to you about this, because this is actually where I believe the upgrade came from, or there was sort of, I don't know, my guides or beings or whatever were like, yep, she's ready now. Now she knows how to do that. She's ready. This is very simple. And meditation, I always ask people if they're meditating, they're always saying no. And I think that meditation has this grand idea or this discipline, or it's got to look like this, when I'm telling you half the time you're doing it anyways. If you knit, you're doing it. When you go for your walk, you're doing it. So we're just going to get this a little, I can now set up these 7 layers in less than 5 minutes. And I'm going to tell you, this is the greatest tip, because you're all going to love it. You get to pick your own music. All right. I even talk about this in my act. All the music is water and creeks and everything that makes you have to go to the bathroom. It's not. The first thing, I'm going to tell you this because you can do it yourself. Pick your own songs. The first one that I do is by Lorena McKenna, and it's called, I don't have the name right here, but it's no singing. It's just music. That sets me up with my 7 layers. Then I do put in 2 other songs by Jane Winter. It's Winter, but if you ask Alexa to play it for you, she pronounces it Vinter. And one is just Om, and the other one is just bells and singing bowls. So this middle part that I do is probably the part that would make you all go, I can't meditate, because that is the part I sit in golden light, and I just sit in it. But the first part is all you have to know. And then the last song on my meditation is In Your Eyes by Peter Gabriel. And I'm sure you all, if you're old enough, remember that song from the 70s. That song he wrote for God. People think he wrote it about a woman. He wrote it for God. And when you hear the song in that context, you understand. And that is the final closeout of my 26-minute meditation. You can cut that down. You can pick your own songs. Whatever, but make it something you love. And now I'm going to tell you the first part of what I do. I do each of the 7 layers. And what I do is 3 breaths I clear. And I'm going to tell you what they are in a second and how they work. It's very simple because the 7 layers are literally the 7 chakras. So you're going to use that same color pattern. It's the rainbow, Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. All right. And they start with the red closest to you. And that is actually called the etheric layer. And there's things you can read if you want to see how far inches they go out or how far out they are. I'm not concerned with that. I see a red layer around me. This is actually connected to your, bottom chakra. It is the physical layer. It's about your organs. It's about your glands. It's about your body, your physical 3D body. So I take 3 breaths watching that just get all the way cleared. I sort of see it where it starts at the top, it goes all the way around, and then it gets dumped into the earth, okay? Where it can get changed. That is 3 breaths on the red layer. I then switch to the orange layer, which is the aura layer or the emotional body layer. This one always is kind of changing. This is where you would store fear, or happiness, or it kind of goes with your moods. And I picture that being cleared. Starts at the top, just however you want to do it. I just picture like a white light that goes down, almost like a scraper that you use on your windshield to clean your windshield. Just goes through, takes everything out, throws it into the earth. 3 breaths. The third one, we go to yellow. That is your mental layer. That is the mental activity. It's where you put thoughts, where you rationalize things, all your mental issues. That is, just do that, clear that one for 3 breaths. And then your 4th is your astral layer. So this one is green. So it'll be connected to your heart layer. This is sort of the layer that connects, the physical body and the astral body. So, you can read more on this, or I'll see if I can find an expert on it, but I'm going through these real fast. This is what you can do. I think when I'm in panic mode, I'm going to start doing this with 7 breaths. Go layer, 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 layer. Okay. But right now I just clear all of them. The 5th layer is the etheric layer. This one is more about sound and vibration. It's about communication. It's about artistic work. It's about being creative. So this is the one where something, singing bowls and stuff like that work really great on this layer. The 6th layer, which now we're connected to our third eye. Our third eye. This is our indigo. This is the celestial layer. And this one connects the physical mind to the spiritual world. This is your psychic stuff. This is your intuitive, your spirit, your dreams, your nightmares, your memories. Clear that one. Then the last one is your crown chakra. And this is the one that I believe connects with God. So that one is purple. It also seems to be the powerhouse and the protection for all the ones underneath it. So now I've cleared all of them. Then I clear that 7th, and I picture my crown chakra connected to God. At this point, after they have all been cleared, you can say whatever you want. I cut cords. I clear gunk. You can be as specific as you want. Psychic energy, negative energy, stagnant energy, other people, blah, blah, blah. I just say I clear this layer 3 times. Boom. Then I start from the inside out, and I watch each layer become like almost solid their color. and just out as I breathe in, it expands out, the light expands out, makes them solid. And then as I exhale, it just pushes out anything that's left. That is sort of the first song. After that, in my meditation, I just sit in golden light. Sometimes it's glitter. Sometimes it's in my body. Sometimes I am glitter. Sometimes it's white. And I just proceed, and then I try and focus on that. So this first part of it, these 7 layers, I would suggest that's all you need to remember are the colors. You can do it in a half hour. You can go on YouTube. There are plenty of guided meditations that will talk you through that will do this. So I started doing this a half an hour every day. And not only did my readings almost get weirdly off the chart, I helped 2 people find their dogs. One of them was a friend, and I didn't get the exact location, but I sent her to a location where she was yelling, and the lady that had her dog heard her. So I don't know if that's a direct hit, but the second one, I came up with the guy's first name and that he owned a gas station. So I'm a good reader. I'm not that good. So I got an upgrade. And here's how you know you get an upgrade. There's many, many ways. My ears, something's going on with my ears, okay? I think that I'm getting clairaudient more, but it's not just the pressure moving. For about a week, there's been a ringing. So I started looking into all the different, what ringing means when your ear's ringing. Now, if it's a low ring, like a that's not good. That's probably something negative or something around you. It was a very high-pitched ringing, and it wasn't making me crazy. It was making me very aware. I do know some people that are having this ringing that it is making them crazy, but lean into it and be like, okay, I'm getting a spiritual upgrade. The other thing that happened is I did have a couple of clairaudient. I'm not getting it that much. Somebody woke me up in the morning. I was that easy state between sleep and being awake, and someone said hello, and then I was awake because someone said hello, and I live alone. There's also you start to hear, I have exercises that I teach about this too. I start to hear in a song that I've heard a million times. I will start to hear a particular percussion. I will start to hear bells in it that I didn't know were there before. It starts to sound differently. I had 2 friends whose voices sounded different. They sounded higher or like they were speaking faster. This also happened with a radio personality. I started to hear them differently. The other thing was I started to hear almost in stereo, where someone would be talking to me and I could hear them as though they were echoing. So when I went to my therapist, she has this, I've talked about it before, she has these things that she hooks my brain up to. And I just listen to music and there's certain clicks. And this may also have been why I'm getting this upgrade. Because I do it a lot. In fact, I asked her if I had money, if I could do it 3 days straight or 5 days straight and just see what it does to my head. Because, it's whatever that echo was when I was in this state, when I was listening to those things she had hooked up to my head. I heard someone said, you're getting a second level of hearing. And, I'm not sure what that means. If it's going to be 2 hearing 2 things at once. But I will say, last night, sometimes when I go to sleep, I'll have radio on or some noise. I just like a little noise. And whenever the radio was off, when I was sitting there alone, it was as if I was hearing somebody like they were building something. They were building something metal and they were banging on the metal and then they were moving it around. But it was literally like listening to a soundtrack of someone in a metal shop. And, there's a part of me that was like, I want to turn this off. But then there's a part of me that's like, don't Don't turn it off. I couldn't sleep, so I eventually did turn on the radio so I couldn't hear it. Because every time I put my head on the pillow, that's what I could hear, as though I was in a metal shop. And the apartments that I live in have had some, it's very interesting. The apartment across from me is empty. And it has always been a younger girl that moves in there that is psychic. I always have the best time with whoever moves into that apartment. And they always hate that apartment because they have stuff that jumps on their bed. That apartment is way more haunted. In fact, what I think was when all this stuff got stirred up, I think, and that apartment is empty, I think some of that stuff was like, oh, let's go see what's going on over there. So I kind of got both apartments, gooey stuff was in here. But many years ago, when the first girl, when my friend Emily lived there, we contacted a friend of mine who was a medium because she and I were hearing exactly the same thing, which was we were hearing a clicking of a pen like this. And we didn't tell her that, but we were hearing it over and over, like in the morning. I would hear that there. And we didn't tell this medium anything. And she said, it feels like there's blueprints. They're going over blueprints. So don't worry what's in there right now. They're not seeing you. They're not aware of you, but it's like a whole bunch of people going over blueprints. And she thought it was a residual energy. Well, my neighbor downstairs thought that because of how oddly these buildings are, our apartments have 2 doors and they're almost right next to each other. Like I could let you in the kitchen or I could let you in the living room. And it's odd to have 2 doors unless this was some type of office where people came in one door and exited out the other. She thought that this was sort of GM offices at one point. There was a GM, General Motors thing or something like that. And that would be the blueprints. To me, I don't know how, if they'd be doing anything metal in these, even if they were offices, but I was somehow getting like, there was a second soundtrack playing that had to do with someone working with metal. Thank God I'm already crazy, or I would think I was crazy. Thank God I'm already there. That's a great saying. I should sell t-shirts with that. Thank God I'm crazy already. Otherwise, I would have thought I was going crazy with the events of today. So somehow I think I am getting an upgrade. I talk in my tarot class about learning to read on the cards and off the cards. All right. Off the cards is when you glance at them or you take in the information in a second and you sort of let the psychicness take over. I believe really good readers are doing both. So, well, if you want to take my tarot class, it is definitely a hands-on, like the reason I learned to read tarot the way I did with all the symbols and colors and, you know, what everything means is because plenty of people call me in an emergency and they're like, what's happening? And if I'm not in that place of meditation or this or that, I can usually flip the cards and get the symbolism, which would get my intuition so I can get a fast answer. That's why I feel like I can read for myself. Some readers can't. I feel like I can because I can do that. I can calculate. That's more of a calculated read. I can also glance at them, put them together, and then get something. So it's really a good system to know. Mostly you want to rely on the second way, but if you can rely on the first is in emergencies, or, you know, you may have a family member that's like, I need to know. Family members are always pressure. So that's why I teach that way. But I was off the cards quite a bit. I felt like at one point I was getting names or, you know, things were coming to me very quickly, where, you know, I can do a good read, but this just seems like an upgrade. So, all that blathering, I hope it made sense to you, but it started with that podcast and things getting weird. And I believe, you know, I see a lot of, okay, my ears just popped. All right, I'll say it. I see this a lot, that awakenings are traumatic, and they are. But let me give you a hint. You're moving to a better place. And right now, one of my, what's happening with me, I think I almost like 2020 better than 2021. 2021 is getting to be a little bit of torture, I feel like. And it is because when 2020, we had that goal, let's just get out of 2020. Now 2021 is hit. And not only is it kind of dark, But I think, we were all wrong with that. January 6th was terrible. I told everyone to stay in. COVID was again, let's all stay in. But I really thought that was going to have a bigger impact. Okay. So I'm a psychic that'll tell you when I miscalled it. I know that people love it when you make a mistake. Oh my God. Psychics are the only jobs that are expected to be perfect. John Oliver did an attack on psychics because he caught a couple of them being wrong. And I feel like putting up a bunch of John Oliver's jokes that didn't go well and go, look, he's not a comedian. Cause that's what he did to psychics. But I feel like what happened is January should have been a bigger pop. And since it wasn't, we kind of smeared that. We smeared that energy underneath. So I don't quite think we're done. And 2021 just feels a little dark to me. But to those of you who are going through awakenings and traumas, I saw someone posting about, it feels like suicide and this and that. Don't go down that rabbit hole. Okay. It is dark. It is traumatic. It is places you've never been before. But I promise you, the other side is so much better. And sometimes your dark night of the soul goes on for a long time. But how about that? I started out with yuckies in my apartment and then I get an upgrade. And now I can listen to a metal shop anytime I want. Who can say that? Right? Too bad it wasn't a music producer or something. But no, I can listen to a metal shop. So, all right, folks, we'll be right back. I think I'm going to have, I'm not sure because I only planned on taping these two so far, but I think I'm going to have something special on the other side of you. On the other side of this. Otherwise, it'll just be me blathering more. Okay.
Psychic teas, spelled with a Z, are scrumptious herbal combinations with antiviral and anti-inflammatory properties. Without sugar or caffeine, psychic teas won't mess with any medications and are designed by a naturopathic doctor. Many testify to positive results. Detox chakras and psychic tea blends enable bodily functions with superior efficacy, while more love and champagne blends support awareness of subtle joy and bliss. The CBD's teas are magical with myriad healing effects. There are 20 servings per package. A little dab'll do ya, and you can drink it hot or cold. Psychic teas taste so good. Replace coffee, use as a bedtime ritual, or even flavor a meal or dessert. The people behind the product are righteous and kind. Psychic teas will blow your mind. Totally worth the investment. Psychic Teas with a Z.com.
Hey, everybody. So, this is part 3. Let me tell you something. This week's podcast, I hope it's making sense or it's interesting, because usually I try to be very prepared when it's just me, and I just haven't been. And I thought the first 2 parts were only going to take as long as the first part, and then it didn't, and I don't know what's going on. But I have my notes, and I'm going to wrap this one up. This is literally how organized I am not. In the beginning of this podcast, I announced that I would be doing a Facebook Live with Tommy, my demonologist friend. He likes to be called a paranormal consultant because he's very humble, but he helps me out with everything. I said March 25th. Between the time I started to tape this podcast and the time I've ended it, it's April 5th, okay? So April 5th, 7 o'clock, Pacific Standard Time, my Facebook page. I'm all out of friends space, but you can follow me on that. So look for Karen Rontowski on Facebook, and that'll be April 5th at 7 o'clock. Laura Hayden will be hosting. She's fantastic. She's going to take your questions. So all your haunted, whatever, what does this mean? This is the guy. This is my guy. This is my go-to guy. So come on in. He is fantastic. He's fun. So April 5th, 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, Laura Hayden will host your questions, and Tommy and I will be there to answer them. Okay, so I have this might be obnoxious, but it's very interesting because the other day was the day Tiger Woods got in a car accident. And I was thinking about how, a friend, a really smart, my wonderful smart friend Kate, was telling me about golfers, and she was thinking that from his injuries, he probably wouldn't golf again. And she told me some stuff like he never would, or on the news, I saw he never missed a weekend of golf. So now he's had this car accident and it may take that away. And I was thinking, and I'm probably wrong, but when you look at things like that, now, after all the podcasting and all the people I've talked to and the way we talk about a life of balance, it makes me think, not that anything like that happens to you, but I bet his life is going to get back in balance now. I bet that's a lot of golf. That's a lot of one thing. And I don't know how much we're brought in this world to do one thing, or the way our souls are expanding now. So, I just thought that was interesting, because my first thought was, oh, he's supposed to balance out his life now. He had all that in the beginning, and now he is going to do whatever else is his karma, whether it's loving people or charity or whatever else, but he'll do it. But I thought sometimes when you're far away, you can see the forest through the trees. Probably not. Probably had that metaphor wrong. But anyways, so then I got a wonderful email from someone. And you know who you are. You used to work in a library and you're thinking of starting Patreon. And, I don't know if this was how the conversation actually went, but we were having a nice email conversation. And, she said, there's some questions I'd love to ask you. And I said, well, there's still 20 minutes left on my thing, so I could answer on the air. And I think she meant, for me to answer them when Suzanne, maybe she meant just to answer them for her, but if not, I'm answering them on the air, and hopefully this will be interesting to you guys, because otherwise it'll just be a short podcast. So, so the first question, how much preparation or planning did you do before launching your podcast? I know you're always several episodes ahead, but did you have a certain number of guests lined up before you felt ready to launch? Well, I would have never been in podcasting if it hadn't been for my first podcast, which was called Karen and Kira Can Read, where Kira Sultanovich asked me to come on. First, she had me on her podcast, and people went so crazy for it. And then we did it where we were doing readings for comics. We would do little psychic readings. And Kira and I still talk all week long. We're still buddies. I know sometimes when that ends, people are like, what happened? Well, nothing happened. My life's not that exciting to have fights with people like that. But we both just got so overwhelmed and so busy. So we are texting all the time. It's lucky if we can get a phone conversation in. But she really opened me up, because people had always told me I should do a paranormal podcast. And I was like, that just sounds like more work. So that was how I got prepared. And then I think I had maybe 2 or 3 in the bag, and I was very prepared in what was going to be on them. And it's still to this day, except for this particular one, when I do one, like I really dig into a topic. I've done one on jinn. I've done one on, certain, that Malaysian flight that went down. I usually do a ton of research. So I think, to be prepared was, I really wrote on the back of our other podcast, and that's where I met Jessa on our other podcast. So I hope that made sense. All right. Any advice on contacting people you find on the internet as potential guests? It sounds like you work to cultivate a relationship with each guest, but that may be your finesse. Oh, what a nice word. What is your process in inviting strangers? You know what? There's a couple of people now. I really don't follow any format. And this is what I do. Do you think professionals would still be willing to offer their time to talk to us? That answer is yes. My answer is yes. And my answer is ask anyone, okay? Because I have had people say no, and there's a lot of people I just don't hear from, that maybe I'm not for them. It's very interesting with my guests, because just about everyone, I would say 99% of my guests, I ask them, okay? Or they're a friend, or I have certain circles, like Jessa and Tiara, and Nimue, and Amy Spice, all these people, whenever, they are welcome whenever. And my psychic friends too, I just kind of call them up and I'm like, let's do a podcast, especially if I can find a topic. I no longer go in. I used to go in a while with someone and just talk to them. And now I feel like, let's pursue something. We got to have a topic on the table. I don't prepare with questions. If the person needs that, I will give them an outline. We're going to kind of talk about this, but I can't stay on track or an outline. And you can see it always goes off in a tangent. The podcast, like I said, I would ask anyone, because most people are really ready to get their message out, and they know. Sometimes I'll send them the numbers of my podcast. But there's a couple of people right now. There's this woman that's a Protestant pastor on TikTok, and I emailed her 3 times times because I didn't know if the email went through, and I was like, she's going to think I'm crazy. But she said, let me listen to the podcast. And she has it now. Maybe we'll hear from her. Maybe I'm not her cup of tea. I didn't even think of it because one of my favorite podcasts, this is the one with Diet Channeling a Demon. And I thought, I hope that one doesn't pop up first on her list. It might not get her here, but she's fantastic. So I pursue almost all of my guests. Every once in a while, people will email me. I think I'm to that point now where I get a lot of emails, and I have to be careful because sometimes when people come to me, they have an agenda and they are what I call sometimes a professional podcast guest. And I feel like there's not so much interaction, and it feels a little like an ad for them. Whereas like I just did, the episode I did on lucid dreaming. Someone had just told me about him and I reached out, and he was so funny and I felt like we had a really good rapport. So I just ask. I'm a comedian. I just ask. I send it out there. I'm trying to get the lady from the Hidden Gin. I'm trying to get quite a few people, but I might be too small for her. I don't know what they look at, but I say, ask everyone. And then as a politeness, I tell them it's an hour, it's audio. I can do it on your time clock. That's the easy thing about pre-tape. And also if they need an outline, I will give them one, but usually it's just a lot of rambling like this. Okay. What do you know now that you learned the hard way or wish someone had told you when you were starting out? What I just told you about guests, where I like to choose them more so when they come to me. Now that's not an overall rule because there's a couple that have come to me now that I kind of feel like I am going to take them on, but that would be one. What other had I wish I learned? You know what? I don't know if this is a mistake I made, but whenever I talk about, here's the thing, I'm a paranormal podcaster, and sometimes you hear me talk about politics or vaccines, and I shouldn't because it's my opinion, and I hope you listen to me when we talk paranormal, but that's not real, that's just me, okay? The other stuff is me. And I sometimes try and pull back, but there's no way now because it's in the news all the time. So I always want to... I'm not going to bend over backwards and try and please everyone. That's not going to happen. And sometimes when people leave nasty comments, I will delete them or something like whatever I can. But I always like to try and make it clear that first responders are welcome to send an email. If you have another side, please send an email. I would love that. And also, like I said, I'm a tarot reader and a paranormal investigator. So you make your own decisions with vaccines and I'll make mine. I hope that makes sense. So I'm sure there's more mistakes that I learned the hard way. I can't remember because I haven't gotten that much flack yet. Okay. Do you remember? You have mentioned that you also develop the abilities and skills as a medium. What does this look like for you? Does most of your practice happen within the container of meditation? Yes and yes. Now, I'm working on my mediumship skills. I don't offer that as a service yet. I stay tarot and psychic. And sometimes people ask me if there's a difference, and I really don't think there is. And right now, in my tarot class, I put so much work into my tarot class and I've gotten so much good feedback from it, but it's a class. It's a big class, but you will know. People always email, they're kind of like, it was a lot to learn. And then I did my first reading and it was really good. And I'm like, yay, that's how it goes. Yes, I am finding a couple of things. And I think I talked about this in the earlier part of this episode is, meditation. I get off that sometimes. Sometimes I go off the rails and it just doesn't happen. But right now I am on a 30-minute meditation. I did tell you guys about this in the earlier. That is changing everything right now. I'm really getting a lot more stuff because I'm able to empty out that mind. Now, I did a album which you can find for free on YouTube, or on my website for $5, and it's called Psychic Stand Up. And that is where I do a stand-up show, and then I answer questions for the crowd. And the answers are funny. So I'm doing two things at once. This is very hard because you have to be in that psychic frame of mind and you have to be in that comedy frame of mind. But it's the most challenging thing that I've done. But meditation helps me with that because I can get that reaction so fast. So yes, meditation I think is the key to everything. There's a couple of other steps. And in fact, I am looking for a great mediumship class. I've taken a couple that were just kind of basic, and I think they were too basic for me. But yes, if you're not meditating, you're kind of robbing yourself. Whoops, I think you're hearing my new mala beads. If you're not meditating, you're robbing yourself and you're slowing yourself down. Okay. As a paranormal investigator, you have access to haunted places that many may not. How do you feel about beginners seeking out places to have paranormal activity to challenge themselves or test their abilities? For paranormal stuff, when we're out of COVID, what I would do is I would go with a team. I'd go on meetup.com and I would look for a team that was planning events. Okay, that's really how I first got started, because a lot of these places, and usually the teams will have a spot. They'll have, this is kind of our place. We lead tours here. That will, number one, keep it safe. You don't want to just run into places that you don't know about. You know, Linda Vista Hospital was very, very, I'm trying to think of a good example. You don't want to run in and have, if it's a newly haunted place, you don't want to have something follow you home. So when you go in with a team who already knows the place and can give you a little tour and probably will help you use their equipment, that is very good. That'll get you know if you want to buy equipment, if you want to pursue it. So I would absolutely say look for a team in your area or a tour. Okay. Because the thing is, it's easy to find haunted places, but there's, everybody's not going to let you in the middle of the night, and there's insurance coverage, and it gets very complicated. So I say start with someone else, and then you'll tend to find things. I also always give out this, if it's your house, don't ghost hunt in your house. That's leaving an invitation if there's something in your house to start interacting with you all the time. If it's a friend's house, have the friend leave and go ahead and try. Other than that, there might be some really good, I would look on YouTube. There's some really good ghost hunters on YouTube that could teach you how to do that. What are your thoughts or advice do you have for those just beginning and acknowledging their development abilities? Sometimes the early stages can be frustrated. Absolutely, absolutely. First of all, like I have a Facebook page called Learn Tarot with Karen, and you can go on there and read for other people. You can try, if you have a reading buddy, like a person you work with, that can be fun. The other thing, this is very important because it's so hard to trust yourself in the beginning. I have, for my mediumship or for whenever I'm working on something new, I'm working on psychic ability off of the cards, which I'm doing about 50% of my readings, but I'm going to do it I want to step all the way into it. I've had some really good success with it. So I think I said this, apologies if I said this in the first part. Keep a win list, WIN. I got this right. I got this right. Flip through it. I continually find combinations of cards that I didn't even think of that. So keep a win list. Don't give up. Have a safe buddy you can work with, not a competitive buddy. Find someone in the same, or find a Facebook page. What the heck? Make up a Facebook name and go offer free readings. Just keep giving it a try, okay? Where am I now? My phone rang if something came over. Just keep going. I don't know. I wish I had a better answer than that, but it took me a long time before I actually started taking paid customers, because I just love tarot. And, I think I lost my place. Okay. What are some things you've learned about talking to clients about delicate matters that come up in a reading? Your experience as a tarot reader would be very helpful here. Are there times you have to choose not to reveal something, maybe because the message is not super clear or potentially triggering? How do you work with this? Okay, so first of all, my overall view is that these are lessons. So I may say something like it's going to be a little bit of a bumpy road, or here's something that's coming up. I don't ever hide anything. But I say it very delicately, and I let them know it's a lesson, or this is going to be a little hard. I do know readers that will just punch like too hard. I'm not your just, this is it, you're being an idiot, blah, 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 blah kind of thing. I may say, this is the way it's going. There are things that I will sometimes say, that's a moving target. And what I feel like is sometimes somebody will ask me about something and the timeline hasn't been chosen, which way they're going with it. And that actually was happening an awful lot in January. And I probably do this too much, but as a reader, if I'm not sure, sometimes I'll offer people a 15-minute follow-up. I really should stop doing that because it's taking a lot. It sort of screws up appointment times and stuff like that. And I can't be perfect. Sometimes that answer is not clear. It's like when people ask about time. Time is the hardest thing to nail down because everybody's going through their karma at a different pace. And I have an upcoming podcast coming up with my friend Renee Watt talking about astrology. It's great. It's a great podcast. And she was saying how, I don't know if time is the same where I'm getting this information, like on that psychic realm. So that is one that I try, but I try to give myself a wide berth with that. But yes, delicate matters I do say to people, but say them nicely, remember their lessons. Sometimes like when I see a big fight coming or something, I will say it and someone will come back to me and say, I did have that fight with my husband, but I knew right away it was coming, so I didn't lose my temper. So you can kind of use words like, this is how I want you to prepare for this, or it does look like the company is slimming down. I don't know if you're going to make it this time. So let's look at other jobs. Let's see what's going on, or reassure them that they're going to be okay, because they are. They are. We're always going to be okay. In fact, one of my favorite stories is about money. And it happened to actually two kind of famous comics. And it actually happened to me and a friend of mine. But I'll tell you the story from the two famous comics. The two of them, when they were first starting out, one of them said, hey, let's go out and get a couple of drinks. And the other one said, I can't because I don't have any money. And the first one said, don't worry, I got it. I got plenty of money. And they went out to have drinks, and turns out they both had $20, which is how old that story is, that you can buy a lot of drinks. But the one guy was like, I only got $20, and the other guy was like, I got $20. So you want to make sure that people know they're going to be okay. I get a lot of obsessive worriers that want me to confirm their future. It's going to be like this. Don't worry. Can't be done. Can't be done. Okay. So you have to kind of address the issue of worrying and looping thoughts. But I do always give the news. I just give it gently, and I give it with the option of that it's going to be better after. Okay. You know what's funny about things being triggering? I am often amazed at I've had things trigger people that were very like, what? That made you upset? There was somebody, and I think I was telling her she was going to be a part of a paranormal group. I was like, yeah, your skills are going to be, and then she started to cry. And she was like, I don't want to be part of a group. And I don't know if she started to cry. I can't remember. But so sometimes triggering will happen. I don't think that's something you can plan for. Certainly didn't think that was going to trigger her. In your development as a medium or even as a tarot reader, what was the most helpful to you as an early beginner? This could be resources, mentors, advice that stands out, that's pivotal. Well, I used to go to see a reader that was amazing. So she really encouraged me. And I talk about this a little bit in my tarot class, is I don't know how naturally gifted I was. I may have been, but I call myself a learned psychic. Sometimes people go on shows and they're like, I was born into this legacy. And it always makes me feel separate. Like, this is something that can be done if you put the work into it. My friend would say to me, it's not a gift. And I would say, no, it's a skill. It's a skill because I learned it. And he said, really? Then how come my plumber can't do it? And I said, for the same reason I can't clean out your pipes. He was focused on that. I was focused on this. So my advice to you, especially with tarot and psychic stuff, do it, watch it, Google other people doing it. The thing I love about tarot is it is a system. I needed to start with systems, okay, and grow from there. Tarot is, if you're very, I think it's left-brained, if you're very analytical, tarot cards will provide you intellect of a system or a follow ABC much easier than anything else. When you start out and someone says, just glance at like oracle decks, just glance at them, see what comes in your head. That can be really off-putting because you might be thinking, I need to eat some Oreos. And if that's your thought, then you're going to tell someone you need to eat Oreos. So I liked it. I started with that system and then stuff started coming from it. But whatever you choose, take online classes, ask a bunch of people, listen to podcasts. The information is out there, and that is what you're doing. You'll sift through it, and some of it won't work, and some of it will. Even now at this point, it's very interesting. I think I said this in the beginning of the second one. It's been like a week. It's taken me a week to tape this podcast, which is why I can't remember what was in the beginning of it. But what I'm learning now from my new meditation, as I bring in or try to bring in new mediumship and psychic skills, is I got to make the space for it. Like, that's energetically now part of my meditation, is I got to expand and make space for this. I can't just expect it to happen. I got to reach that higher vibration. And almost the reason I started with the Tiger Woods thing was, I just went through a very hard time, which I told you about. I think there comes a reward from that. Or when, like, now I'm in therapy and I'm digging up all that yucky stuff. You know what? The closer you are to authentic self, the closer you are to knowing yourself, the more psychic you will be. The more you admit, like I think when if I'm getting angry with someone, or I'm having an argument with my boyfriend or something, I feel the passive aggressive come up. And before, where it was like, no, that's how I feel. Now I go, why? You're going at this the wrong way. Sit down, write down what you want to say, and say that. Don't go around it making people feel guilty or whatever. The more you get past your shadow side with that, the more psychic you're going to be. And remember, I hear like a lot of times in the awakening, people are having a really hard time and they're getting very caught up in how depressing or codependent or twin flames. Hey, your gifts are on the other side of that. Work through. So it's not intuition and mediumship and tarot and all that. I don't think it's just a skill. I think you're working on all of you. And I will tell you this, even when I wake up in a bad mood or something isn't going right, when I do my readings, I remember talking to my mentor about this. I feel so connected to source sometimes, and sometimes I don't feel it, but it's there, that I'm always in a better mood. You know, a reading has to really either be someone that was resisting and I resisted back. That can happen in readings where someone is like, I had someone that just wasn't hearing what I was saying. She wanted a relationship so bad that no matter what I said, it was like, no, but you said, and I did the work. And it was a friend, and I let it go on way too long. So I was frazzled after that. That was like a 30-minute reading that I let go for an hour. And then I was like, okay, you got to let it go. If people are resisting, you have to let it go, even if it's a friend. So I always feel like it always amazes me that people think this is the devil's work, because I feel so connected to source and so peaceful or energized when I'm done. Now, clearing that energy off so that I'm grounded and I'm not carrying everyone else's thoughts is a whole nother story. We'll get to that. I'll do another one of these. Thank you for these questions. Anyone else have questions they want answered? Please send them to me and I'll do them the next time I do my podcast alone. But I just ordered, this is the thing that always makes me laugh. I just ordered, thank you to my friend Hippie Pippy, on Instagram, that found a book of poems by Saint Agabus, which you all have heard me talk about, I'm sure, who is the patron saint of fortune tellers and mediums. So if the Catholic Church didn't want us doing this, why did they make a patron saint for us? So I'm going to do a whole thing when I get that book. So, thank you, Suzanne, for these questions. I think you helped me finish a podcast and go long. Hey, everybody. I hope you made it this far. Hopefully we'll see you April 5th. That is going to be a super fun and informative Facebook Live. It'll also be repeated if that's too late for you. You can watch it the next day. Thanks to Mike at Una Rising Media. If you guys have any questions for me, please send them to karenrontowski@gmail.com. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening.